Self-described lieutenant in the Aryan Brotherhood is arrested again on illegal weapons charges.
Yeah, 36-year-old Christopher Peeler had bonds of $30,000 set Thursday on 2 weapons and 1 drug charge. Last Wednesday, police got a report of a suspicious vehicle in the 1500 block of 23rd and found a Buick in the backyard of a vacant house.
Police had Peeler exit the car when they saw a wooden baton and nunchucks under his feet on the floorboard. Officers recognized Peeler as a known member of the Aryan Brotherhood of Texas, who has told officers he is a lieutenant in the white supremacist gang. An officer frisked Peeler and said he had 2 knives, 1 on each hip. That he also found a meth pipe on the car floorboard, another in the glove box, and a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun in the back seat.
Police say Peeler is a 3-time convicted felon. In 2013, he was charged with child endangerment when police say they found a 7-month-old baby sweating and alone in a car at a 102-degree day while Peeler was shopping inside a family
Jail inmate tied to retaliation by Aryan Brotherhood members against suspected jail snitches has her probation revoked and is going to prison.
Jenna Thornton was sentenced in 2022 to 5 years, suspended to 10 years probation for retaliation on inmates. That probation is now revoked, and she is now sentenced to 4 years in prison for retaliation, 5 years for theft of a pickup and trailer last March, and 12 months for burglary of a building.
Another female inmate, Stephanie Baxter, is serving 7 years in prison. A third inmate was given 8 years probation. Authorities said in the summer of 2021, a known member of the Aryan Brotherhood gang set up attacks on a female inmate believed to be snitching on 3 Brotherhood members. Investigators said the assaults were carried out by women called Featherwoods, who are female associates of Brotherhood members.
Investigators say jail surveillance video supported the victim's report. The investigator said Baxter admitted she was a Featherwood member and that another Aryan Brotherhood member referred to Thornton as a Featherwood.
Thornton previously served prison terms for assault of an officer in 2016, and her 26 arrests include charges of assault, resisting arrest, burglaries, forgery, and parole violation.
It was a bizarre shooting caught on camera in Northeast Albuquerque. It involved 4 men who investigators say were part of a white supremacist group called the Aryan Brotherhood. So who are these guys, and are there others like them? Nancy Laughlin found out more about the gang, where members are supposed to remain loyal even if that means committing crimes after they get out of prison.
It looked like something out of a movie. May 12th, Northeast Albuquerque. A car drives up. Investigators say when Richard Kuykendall tries to get in, bullets start flying. He ducks, then goes around the car, eventually getting inside that car where 3 men had been fatally shot. Who shot who? That's still under investigation. Kuykendall, they say, ditches a gun, then dumps the men at Casement Presbyterian Hospital. A week later, he's busted, not for murder, but for being a felon in possession of a gun. So who were these guys? Turns out all had long rap sheets, plenty of mugshots, and the feds say were members of the Aryan Brotherhood.
With the Aryan Brotherhood or some of the white prison gangs, there's not a lot of white street gangs. I mean, we have our neo-Nazis, our KKK groups, things of that nature.
Walter Herrera is the head of the New Mexico Gang Investigators Association. He says once someone ends up behind bars, it's not uncommon for them to join a gang.
If you're white, you're outnumbered in the state of New Mexico, and you are going to roll with your own race, and that ends up forming its own inmate politics, if you will.
The Aryan Brotherhood Corrections Department staffers say started in the prison system decades ago.
The Aryan Brotherhood is a gang that actually originated in the state of California back in the 1950s, 1960s.
The feds say over time, the Aryan Brotherhood, or AB as they're also called, spread throughout the country with members inside and outside the prison system, including right here in New Mexico.
I couldn't tell you a specific number, but I mean, it's in the probably hundreds of thousands. When you're talking about a nationwide level.
Members of AB often have tattoos identifying their membership, like White Boy. And it's not just men who are members.
For the female gang members who are affiliated with these groups, oftentimes there's a misconception or a misunderstanding that the female gang members wouldn't be involved in violence.
They say gang members are supposed to stay loyal even when they're out of prison. The New Mexico Department of Corrections tells us there are options for people who don't want any part of this.
You know, the corrections department tries to implement programs and incentives and things like that to kind of steer the inmates and these individuals that are involved in these groups away from that mentality. But it's ultimately up to that individual to make that choice that they want to get away from that.
The head of the New Mexico gang investigator says all of this is not easy. He says there are 600 documented gangs in New Mexico, including the Aryan Brotherhood. Nancy Laughlin, KOAT Action 7 News.
In 2015, the feds say the S&M prison gang was tied to murders both inside and outside prison and attempting to put a hit on the head of the New Mexico Department of Corrections. The FBI says more than 100 gang members were convicted on federal charges.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to Greenlit Gang TV. Thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Today we're going to be talking about a gentleman, Tyler the Hulk Bingham, a little bit lesser well-known than Barry the Baron Mills, as far as an AAB, Aryan Brotherhood commission leader, but just as violent, was involved in just as many high-profile cases, and I feel like did just as much damage with the orders he gave, the actions he took, and the crimes he committed over the years. He is still alive, unlike Barry the Baron Mills, who passed away. He's still in ADX Florence to this day. He is basically what you would call the leader of leaders right now. Old age, he was born in 1947, but Tyler the Hulk Bingham was a force to be reckoned with. Like I said, born in 1947. One of the original members of the three-man commission in the federal system, nicknamed the Hulk for his enormous size and strength. One of the things you'll learn about Bingham, which the word learn is tough because there's not a lot of info on him. I read a lot of articles. I read the court paperwork. I read his appeal paperwork. He's a hard man to really get a lot of background on. What's one unique thing about him is he's actually got a swastika tattooed on one shoulder, and on the other he's got a Star of David. And in what I was reading, it's showing that the AB, just in particular the AB, it's much less about racial politics and like neo-Nazi beliefs compared to other Aryan gangs who have a firm belief in those kinds of beliefs. And this guy's a leader, been there damn near since the beginning. 70s, 80s, 90s, one thing to remember, in the 80s, the AB was obviously around. It had been formed, but the power structure was a little bit more, I don't want to say informal, but it was a little bit looser. So the influence that guys like Bingham and Mills had was still great. They carried a lot of weight. And don't get me wrong, when they said something, things got done, but they didn't have as much authority to attack an entire race group or maybe carry out a murder or command a murder be carried out with absolute authority and nobody questioning what they were saying, as in later years where, in the 90s and stuff and up until the big trial happened, they were calling these shots. So as it became more organized and guys like Mills and Bingham gained more power and authority and more notoriety, the stakes were raised. And the reason I showed you guys the videos I did, if you noticed, I picked different states, different areas, showing you the kind of widespread power that these guys had and basically the monster that they created. I guarantee you in the 60s, 70s, they had no idea what this would become and what it is today, spread across all different factions of the prison system, the state level, the federal level, different groups, different Aryan groups that broke off from the Aryan Brotherhood. It is very, very interesting and very interesting to read up about. So Bingham, right? Power increased. They got to the point where they could call all the shots. And the one thing to remember is their main goal is to control and dominate the prison system to make their lives as easy and comfortable as possible. The famous case of the 1997, on August 28th, 1997, Mills, Bingham, they helped orchestrate a massive prison riot. 6 people were stabbed, 2 people were killed. Those 2 people were Frank Joyner and Abdul Salam. A lot of the messages that Mills and Bingham and all these guys were writing back and forth, that Mills was getting to Bingham and stuff, were done under code of basically urine. It's secretly written in urine. You heat it up, you can read the passage. But there was also a 400-letter alphabet, basically, and I put a picture up here on it, that was done by Sir Francis Bacon, right? 400-year-old secret alphabet that the Aryan Brotherhood adopted, that Francis Bacon had come up with, using the invisible ink with urine and garlic and onion powder, stuff like that. But the main one was like the urine. That's what they talk about in the courtroom, and you can see in the federal trial. It was decided, they were communicating with letters back and forth, right? Mills was writing to Bingham, then Bingham was getting the orders off to the guys at the other prison. And it was basically decided before the race riot went down in Lewisburg, if Barry Mills was writing, basically talking about being a grandfather, and they were expecting a grandbaby, well, the code was, if it was a baby girl, which you see in some of the writings, the attacks were called off. But if it was said a baby boy was born, it was a go. And it was kind of looking like for a time that the attacks might be off. He had wrote at one point, Mills to Bingham, that we're hoping for a baby girl. So hoping to not have to attack, but preparing for both. Okay. Well, then word comes down from another prison that the DC blacks were getting ready to, they'd put a hit out on David Sarkian, if I'm saying that right, and another gentleman. And at that point, Mills said, okay, all bets are off. Got the word to Bingham, war with DC blacks. You see that in some of the documentaries you can find on here. And it was on, and Bingham got those orders to the appropriate people, guys like Al Benton and such. They attacked those gentlemen. 2 of them were killed. And, that was a very, very famous race riot. The one thing with the Brotherhood that a lot of people, I don't think, realize is they are, I've mentioned this in other videos, they are very selective in who they pick. Their numbers are small, but their power is great. And that goes for some of these other very dominant prison gangs, the Mexican Mafia, other black gangs as well. The Black Guerrilla family. These guys, man, some of their numbers aren't necessarily huge, but the ones they pick are the best of the best, and the AB is no different. So, race riot goes down late 90s. In 2002, Bingham, Mills, and a couple other guys, or actually not just a couple other guys, they were the head of it, right? It was a 2002 indictment. 40 other AB members were charged with all sorts of crime that fell under the RICO statute: racketeering, murder, drug dealing, gambling, everything, right? But the murder is obviously the big one. It was the largest federal capital case since the death penalty had come around, right? And originally, Tyler Bingham was looking at the death penalty. They were able to avoid that. He ends up getting sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without parole. Eventually ends up at ADX Florence with Barry Mills. But in reading this, you read about the courtroom drama and what's going on inside the courtroom, and it is intense. They're like shackled, bolted to the floor, marshals behind them. You can imagine if you're being a juror in that situation and seeing that, what that would be like. That is crazy. Lots of different witnesses, lots of different character witnesses. They said it was almost a circus at some point with some of these AB members coming up, speaking. Al Benton was the one that, the big guy that he turned, right? He committed a murder in that Lewisburg riot. He stabbed a guy, I think, through the throat or something. Ate him alive, bothered him, and he said that these guys were like his brothers. So up here testifying, felt like he was basically snitching on his own brothers, which, whatever. Guy I think he got like 9 years or something. These guys are doing life. He stabbed a guy through the throat and only gets 9 to 10 for cooperation. So, it's a dirty game. This is how these things go. But an interesting point, I was reading up on the kind of literature that if you're an AB member, you're required to read: Sun Tzu, The Art of War, books by Machiavelli. I think I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Nietzsche, if I'm saying that right. It's just very, very interesting. Notes in invisible ink, right? It's just one of those things where you see the level of thought that goes into it. I was reading that notes were getting passed through the prison systems, like in mop handles or under rocks, certain workstations, guys coming in and out. It's just a whole different world. It's a whole different underworld with its own rules. And it really is, like they say, a blood in, blood out. There is that saying that if you want to become an AB member, you have to kill, and the only way you're able to get out is death. So it's, it is what it is. You know what you're getting into when you join, just like these other gangs. The Aryan Brotherhood, I mean, they're very well known. I do videos on these, and they get a lot of views. People are very interested in stuff like this. Same with the Mexican Mafia, same with the Black Guerrilla family, same with a lot of other gangs. It's just the Mexican Mafia, Aryan Brotherhood, the Black Guerrilla. Some of these guys have more notorious members and more notorious crimes that have been committed, and more content or TV shows or TV documentaries that have been made. So you hear about them. These are names Bingham, Mills. You almost know them on just like a one-name basis, I did a video on the rat from the snitch, the guy boxer Enrique Boxer Hernandez, snitched on everybody in the Mexican Mafia. He's very well known. So anyway, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tried to get as much info as I could on Bingham, but I just kind of wanted to also do an overview. That's why I did these news clippings showing you guys the kind of reach the AB has and what this has become, because Bingham's an old man. Honestly, at this point, he's an old man, but what they've created over the last 40 years and longer is very interesting. It's crazy. And we'll continue to see where that goes. Love bringing you guys this content. Thank you so much for checking this video out. Have a wonderful day.